an elevator. We go up to the second floor. You'll see something here. This was the most challenging ever had more valuable art here at the Athlete Shore and watch over to the zoo, and that's Bill Wells, our director of security. I feel one of the great young geniuses in this country is J.J. Palmer, and we've shown his work before. And on that, I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dolly. I'm thrilled to be here. It's an amazing experience. Mary and I, my wife, in fact, she's here today with me, but she was called away for a telephone call. She finally made it. She's an environmental lawyer. So we live in a small farm in a remote part of Virginia, in Western Virginia, and she helps folks who have been affected by coal mining. That's what she does all the time. So, in fact, one of her recent clients lived in a small trailer. They were blowing up the side of the mountain, boulder goes down, you know, it's that kind of thing. She helps folks affected by coal mining. But anyway, art making for me and circularity, I think circularity is at the heart, I think, of what I do, actually, in so many ways. I mean, I drew as a child, or what child doesn't, but that impulse disappeared until 1998 when Mary and I got married. And when we got married, we, I guess like most married couples, we don't get off the farm that often. In fact, this is the most human beings I've seen gathered in a long time. We have dogs and cats and honeybees and groundhogs and things, so we have our own little community. But anyway, when we got together, we decided sort of very consciously that we wanted to define our culture. We just didn't want to. We wanted to sort of make an effort to sort of define who we were as a couple. I mean, it was an amazing, miraculous thing, meeting her and she said meeting me, getting together. And in fact, we got married after 2 months, and that was 13 years ago. It was a crazy explosion of wonder and love. It was just amazing. But anyway, art happened in the same way. Shortly after we got married, for me, we said that we wanted to define our culture, and we really didn't know what that meant at the time, but we said, well, let's explore that. And one thing that popped up was that we wanted to live with art. We lived in a little small house, little brick house in Pound, Virginia. It's in the mountains of Virginia, central Appalachia. Walls were bare, and we said, well, we want to live with art. We want to live with things that have been made by hand, and we want to do it ourselves quite often. And so, at the time, Mary was a copy editor for medical textbooks, and she had boxes and boxes of typing paper, and she also had around this little wooden briefcase that she carried around. It's one of these talismans, these totems that people carry around every time they move. And she moved to New Mexico and Charlottesville, all over the place. And she always carried this little thing, and it was a childhood art kit, and she got it when she was a child. It was completely pristine, unopened, but she still carried it around no matter where she went. So I said, can I use it? And she said, sure. So, of course, being a married couple, a young married couple, we had TV. We'd never had TV, so we're married. We got a couch, let's get TV. So we got a TV. So we sat there in front of the TV, and I got a ream of paper, and I started playing around with oil pastels and watercolor and whatnot. And she sort of picked up her book, and the TV was still on. Well, shortly, as you can imagine, the TV went off, and I continued drawing and painting, and she went back to her books. But anyway, art smacked my life in a way that was it was very similar to the relationship that just smacked me with Mary. But the thing is, when I look back in retrospect, and this is something I talked about with the dogs just recently, there was a confluence, because, you know, again, no human beings down there really, and Mary's off in Kentucky. So the dogs and I are talking about art. There was a confluence of influences, actually. There was, on the one hand, there was Mary, which was amazing and wonderful. And I think at the heart of that, there was definitely, love. But on the other hand, at the time, I was a reference librarian at a small college, a neighboring town, and my boss was a Napoleon, a dictator. I'm sorry, he was a bad guy. He was a bad guy. And he was a micromanager, and he said, I mean, he was not a pleasant person to work with. So at the end of the day, there was also this influence of, I need to do something, I need to create something that he's not looking over my shoulder, he's not criticizing, it's just something that's mine. So on the one hand, we're creating our culture, on the other hand, I wanted to create something, and this thing just popped out, and I haven't stopped since. And literally, I've drawn every single day since then, and it's been over 13 years. So it was an amazing thing. So anyways, circularity of going back from my childhood, and every week they would deliver it to us. And so we had empty cardboard boxes that I started to fill up with drawings, because the walls started to fill up. So I needed to put them somewhere. But anyway, I didn't really think about it, and it wasn't long before, well, let me go to the future a little bit. Mary said, you need a webpage, just get a webpage. And so I said, well, I don't want to do a webpage. So she really pushed me to do a webpage, but the really wonderful thing as far as that's concerned is that I opened up all these boxes. And opening up all these boxes, there were so many loose threads, and it was a great experience just opening up and sitting down on the floor and just looking through everything. And anyway, there's circular images, circular processes runs through all of my work. But I guess the long and short of it is, this is part of my home that Rebecca and Dolly have invited me to share, and it's just, this is my relationship with Mary, essentially. Essentially. And, I mean, the hate part, the bad boss, see it back in the background. I'm focusing primarily on love, so that's what I do. So.
Well, I wanted to say we're going to have a very interesting conference that came largely inspired by you and our Huichol Indians, who are artists. Macario, we had a group of Huichol Indians that you'll see their work in this show, as well as a Native American in the back gallery. They were all totally focused independently on environmental disasters that were very personal to them. The Huichol Indians in Mexico had their mineral rights sold off to the Canadians a few years ago, and as a result, the Canadians came in and have devastated the tops of the mountains, as well as polluted their well water. I mean, it's very serious. So I heard that and I thought, oh my gosh, that's Mary and JJ's story about their water being polluted. And then lo and behold, Mark Steiner brought a good friend here. It was a Lakota Indian, Native American named Scott Ware. And Scott Ware's wife is Claire Ware. They live in a teepee with their 2 children. And she is the chief of mineral rights representing the Native Americans for the government, and she is no sellout. So on Sunday, January the 22nd, we're going to have a conference that begins with the experience of this rapidly poisoned earth that's very personal from the artist, and I'm hoping you and Mary will come, and from the First Peoples. We will have our Tibetan monks in the house again at the same time, and they do a circle dance. I've never had Tibetan monks say, besides the mandala work, that they wanted to come and do the circle dance. And they didn't even know about the show, so that was synchronous. And then we're having Sandra Steingraber, who wrote Living Downstream. So we're going to begin with people who have, as farmers, have seen their land devastated, as the Native Americans, as the Huichol Indians have seen what has happened to their villages, and then we're going to have the scientific explanations of the state of the ocean, state of the land, where we are. This year, 2011, we just hit 7 billion people. 7 billion people on this blue ball. So this should be an incredible conference, again, on that Sunday, and the first money in has been the Corfu, C-O-R-F-U Foundation. That's a bad word to spell out, but we're very happy to have them. So thank you, and I hope you will come put that on your calendar, Sunday the 22nd, because I want to hear from both you and Mary on that day. Any questions for JJ?
The ghost images that reappear, can you explain the symbolism of what they are?
No, I really can't.
He's a true artist.
When I think of my work, I was trained as a librarian, and another sort of circular movement in my work is I feel like that when I'm a reference librarian, if I'm sitting at the reference desk and somebody comes up to me and they say, I need help on something or other, X, Y, and Z, I know, because I'm a librarian, I know that I need to go to a certain section in the library to find that information. I might not have ever gone to that particular shelf and looked at that particular book, but I know where to go, right? In the same way, I think there's a similar sort of impulse in my drawing, in that for whatever reason, something in me is asking me to go out into a place that's very familiar to me, but also very unfamiliar. In the same way that the library is very familiar. I've seen all these books. I may have walked by that book down there a million times, but I've never pulled it off the shelf, opened it up, and helped somebody with it. In the same way with my artwork, I feel like that I'm going into places that are very familiar to me, but I'm reporting back with this unfamiliar information. And these little guys, I don't know where they show up. I mean, I think in retrospect, I can sort of make up a story about how there was oil pastels and acrylics on the one hand, and on the other hand, there were these drawings that I was doing, and those sort of came together, and this little guy sort of came out of that explosion, and I can sort of remember the drawings. And actually, this little sort of symbol right here that shows up, it's sort of like a cousin to this. They sort of came out at the same time. I can say that the little guys, I imagine them when I draw them, and they're all over the place. I imagine them with arms, but I imagine their arms are behind their back. This is what's in my mind, that their arms are behind their back, but there's this tension in my mind between whether they're just sort of casually observing, like I'm observing you right now, or whether their arms are bound. So there's this tension, whether or not, there's this sort of like, am I forcing this little guy to stand right here? Or is he a casual observer and he wants to be there? So there's still that tension between, am I forcing this artistic act, or is it just sort of showing up because he's observing? So there's always that kind of tension. So, but it's not a pleasurable tension, but it's a creative tension for me. So.
Any other questions for J.J. Cromer back here?
Did you start, when you started, did you just start with black and white? Or
Well, I started with faces. I mean, just little circles, little faces, and I drew 100,000 faces. And in fact, the fellow that I work with in McLean, when I contacted him originally, I just had boxes and boxes of faces. So from there, it just sort of fractured out. So.
Any other questions? Stephanie? All right, here, 1.5 feet of unsolicited mail a day. We've recently had death threats, which I think is pretty good in 16 years, from one artist who was very upset that I didn't respond. It is impossible to keep up with what comes through. We almost feel like we get led about which envelope to open up, because we're not wealthy enough to really have a system in place to have staff to constantly open the unsolicited mail from artists that comes to us day in and day out. But sometimes we get lucky. And the time we got lucky was this one, and I see it sent to me, and it's not put away. She would send her art with a DVD in it, and these exquisite boxes. And when she came in with her hair last night, I said, "Oh my gosh!" I recognized it. It had been a skirt with these beautiful little pieces, and inside was something for me to look at, also very circular, to look at the images that she had included. And Dolly and I were smitten. And then when we looked at what was happening in Stephanie's work, and then heard the story behind it, we knew we had to get you into this show. So with that, Stephanie Lucas, who's very fortunate to be married to another outsider artist, who I've heard of, Lorik Lucas, so who's there with the camera.
Hello. Concentration. Because yesterday I was in Paris and today I am in Baltimore. I'm sorry for my froggy accent, messieurs, dames. So a little paper, because my English is very bad. I'm really sorry. And I'll talk to you now. Okay. My name is Stéphanie Lucas. I am 35. I'm living in the center of the France with my husband, Loïc Lucas. Louis. He's a great artist. In this area, they farm cow and sheep, like J.J. Cromer. I think that I started to live drawing when I was young and looking at my father drawing with a simple pencil. It is thanks to him that I understood that anything was possible, and I suppose it's a gift to him if I can to paint as I do. Then I went to school, but I was not very good as it, and quit before graduating, and I made a formation for be a saleswoman. I have been working for 11 years selling expensive clothes to rich people. Oh, very nice dress, very nice shirt. Terrible. Very very expensive. At the beginning, I love it, but one day I realized it was not what expected of my life. And the little voice was speaking to me very clearly. Are you sure at the right place? Where you really want to be? Not at all. What would you want to do? And I took what I really, really want to do for save my life, it's painting. Really. So now that I was made for painting, I took a definitive decision, quit what I was doing up to now. So I broke all the stuff to able to start my first painting. I had not been drawing for 15 years and now I had to go. I met my husband, who is an artist as well, and now we're working together all long day and we are encouraging each other to keep our energy alive. At the beginning, I was painting portraits, but I not really satisfied. And one day, I had a strange idea, painting with my left hand. Oh. Why, I don't know. But I was surprised how painting moved in the direction I could not imagine. And the combination of the two hands experience come to the painting you can see. At this time, I was living in the big town, and now I'm in the very little, teeny, weeny, little village. And for me, it was a new way of life. I made a kitchen garden, I grew my own vegetable, and I understand that is not so easy to create. But you can only try to copy, embellish, and improve. In my kitchen garden, I work in collaboration with the force of nature, the cosmic energy, you know? And I think nothing can equalize nature. We can only pay homage to it.
Nice.
Voilà.
Oh,
and
That's nice.
can you explain your work?
yes,
I want you to know that Stephanie and Lurik live in a little stone house in the part of France that is known as the Berry, like Berry, B-E-R-R-Y. And what is interesting about it, it is the repository for centuries of the only place in France where certain healing herbs grow and are renowned by pharmacists, etc., as being from there. It's known for its healers, it's known for its mystics, and it's known for its witches, and actually has a witchcraft kind of, museum there. But it also, you shared with me last night, that a week after you moved there, because they had a little, were able to buy for under $50,000 a 3-bedroom stone house with a bathroom, running water, everything. And for France, that's pretty amazing. The headline of the local paper were, "More UFOs spotted here."
okay. When I commence, quand je commence,
When you begin?
yes, when I begin my canvas, I take my pencil and I only all the direction, and the energy come to me. Take my hand and direct.
Wow.
And after, I have the direction and I can commence.
You can really begin.
Yes. And je ne réfléchis pas. I don't
think about it.
It comes.
It just comes
natural.
pouring through.
Voilà. And it's a circle. And ce que j'aime, c'est que
What I love?
when I love, it's I try to create your look, my picture, and it's a contribution for the big energy, the real big energy, la bonne énergie, la good vibration when you see my picture.
You know, it's interesting. We've been at this now. We're going to be turning 16 years old this Thanksgiving since we've opened our doors. And probably it's only this show that I can remember where an artist, which was Sean Theron, so directly spoke about seeing his work as a portal for energy, and yours as well. It's really interesting. I mean, we hear kind of similar things sometimes, but I've never heard two artists speak so directly about that. If you can appreciate up close these paintings, the precision, do you do the big work first and then come in and do the detail, or do you work detail all the way out?
It's like when you
knit?
yes, for me.
So do you finish a section and then move on? Or
No, it's like spiral,
like a spiral?
a big, no.
Like a bigger spiral down to the,
Voilà.
and then you know when it's finished.
Ouais, yes.
Okay. Any other questions here?
I'm curious about it looks like there's a lot of humans with animal characteristics and the other way around. Where does, can you talk about that?
Elle est curieuse parce que il y a beaucoup d'humains qui ont des têtes des animaux, le corps des animaux et le contraire aussi.
Ah oui, it's because I think we have tous un animal. Nous tous, on a un animal en nous.
Each one of us has an animal nature.
Animal nature, yeah.
Anima.
Voilà.
What was interesting, here we're in the room called Vesica Piscis, and I said, "Oh, I love your mother." I think this one is called what? It's called Mother, and it's just filled with the Vesica Piscis formations. And she said, "Oh, I don't know that." It's just intuitive again.
Ah oui.
Yeah. It's so glowing.
They look a little, some of them are very ferocious.
Il y en a qui sont comme des bêtes fâchées.
Oui.
Yes.
Oui.
Yeah.
Because it's not all the day Disneyland, you know. It's real cruel. The life is cruel. It's a circle. I can eat you. You can eat me. It's a circle.
Cycle
I
of
know.
life.
Voilà. C'est ça.
Reciprocity.
We have to say that we were upstairs last night having dinner, and they were right off the plane, and they're vegetarian, and I said, oh, if we eat anything not vegetarian, will you feel like, oh, we can't stand being with those people, you know, because we didn't know each other that well yet, and I said, you know, gee, Baltimore's known for its crabs, you know, because, you know, some vegetarians have, like, you know, they'll eat a fish, but they'll eat a whatever, you know, so I said, you know, do you know about crab? And she said, oh, crab, that's why I'm a vegetarian. She said, I walked by and I saw the bubbles coming out of this crab in a market, and it was like, I was told, we suffer so much because, like we, the whole animal kingdom, because of how humans are. And she came home and said, no more meat ever, and stuck to it.
people are.
Oh, and she also said that was the best vegetarian food, plug, that she ever had in a restaurant upstairs. So, they were really hungry, but it is good. So, il y a autre chose que vous voulez dire?
Non, je pense qu'il faut les regarder.
She just wants you to look at it and soak in the really good energy. Or any other questions? This is called the rattle, correct? Like a child, comme un bébé?
Oui, et the rattle, primitive rattle.
It's a primitive rattle. I like, and here, a shake in the whirl.
Ouais.
See?
With different elements, poil, fur,
Fur,
bone,
bone,
fish.
Scales.
Yes. All the material of the natural material is here in this rattle for wake the spirit of the humanity. Pour réveiller
To awaken the spirit of humanity?
Grâce à la nature, grâce aux forces
Because
naturelles.
grace of the force of nature. And I don't know if you know, in all of the prophecy right now from people there are now over 1,500 books written on 2012. Most of them are just kind of, alarmist and very fear-oriented. But the higher note of all of the messages, and that from Stephanie and J.J. Cromer and our Native American and our Huichol artist, is really dovetailed with that call that a Marylander named Rachel came up with with Silent Spring. That what we're doing so rapidly now, it has enormous consequence. Thank you so much for your work.
One question. I love your palette, and I'm wondering where your color inspiration's coming from.
D'où vient l'inspiration pour les couleurs que tu utilises?
Yes, it's a good question. Very important questions because it's a vibration. I listen a lots of music with my husband, Loic, and I think the same vibration, music and color. And for overthink, I know, je pense qu'il y a d'autres vibrations. Hein? Et it's the same. And when we paint, there is music, there is color, and on the canvas. Voilà.
The answer. Thank you. Oh, merci. Okay, we're going to come down the hall.
Okay. Merci.